Hello students, today we will discuss some of the basic concepts in sociology. I personally feel that an understanding of these concepts will help us to understand sociology in a better way because these concepts are very frequently used throughout the syllabus in sociology. So, let's begin. In order to prepare this lecture, we have referred multiple authentic resources so that you can develop a thorough and a comprehensive understanding about these basic concepts. To begin with, let us discuss briefly that what do we mean by sociology. Now, as you can see, that sociology is the scientific study of society. Actually, these two keywords constitute the core of sociology. If you have understood the meaning of what is society, and if you have understood that how society can be studied scientifically, then trust me, you have understood sociology. So let us begin. Let us now discuss the concept of society. What is society? Students, we all are part of society. We live in society. We grow in society. But how should we understand, how should we comprehend society? In reality, we see individuals around us, whether they are our family members, friends, relatives, teachers, or strangers. But we don't see society. Yet, we say that we are part of society. Right? Students, society is basically a concept, just like many other concepts, with the help of which we try to understand our world. Students, as an individual, we acquire knowledge about physical world and our social world through our senses. It is through sensory observations that we gain knowledge about our physical and social world. For example, when we touch something, when we taste something, when we hear something, when we smell something, or when we see something, we acquire some information about that phenomena, whether it is a physical phenomena or a social phenomena. Since through senses we come into contact with infinite number of things, so it is almost impossible to understand each and everything in a systematic manner. So, human beings make use of concepts in order to make sense of this infinite information that they acquire through their senses. So, concepts are basically the tools with the help of which we try to arrange our infinite sensory observations into systematic information. Students, various physical and social phenomena which share similar characteristics are generally clubbed into a category and we give it a name. That name is nothing but the concept. This name, this concept, now defines the general attributes of the objects that fall into this category. For example, when we look at the physical world, we make a distinction between the living things and non-living things. In living things, we further make a categorization either in terms of herbivore or carnivore, right? Or we make a distinction in terms of animals, birds, etc. So, at every stage, you can see we are classifying those phenomena, those objects which have similar characteristics. So that is why concepts help us to comprehend the infinite nature of physical and social reality. Students, humans build up their knowledge of the physical and social world not simply by looking at it, but through developing and refining concepts which would help them make sense of it. Concepts can be considered as the building blocks of human knowledge. They are nothing but mental representations of the physical or social reality. They are logical abstractions which are based on empirical observation. Sociologists also approach social reality with the help of concepts which are derived on the basis of empirical observation. Two important characteristics of concepts are: 1. Precision. By precision, I mean that the concept must be defined very clearly so that any kind of ambiguity could be avoided. The second characteristic of a concept is generality. By generality, I mean that a concept basically refers to the general characteristics which are shared by a group of objects in common. So, when we are talking about society as a concept, we are basically referring to a group of individuals who share some similar characteristics. For example, common residence, common culture, etc. Students, McIver has defined society as a web of social relationships. Now, here I want to clarify one thing to all of you, that though when we talk about society as a concept, we are referring to a group of individuals. But society is not just the sum total of these individuals. It is something more than that. That is, society as a concept is also referring to the interpersonal relationships among these members. So that is why it is stated sometimes that 2 plus 2 in sociology is not 4, rather it is 5. Why? How do we explain this extra 1 here? This extra 1 indicates this relationship that exists between different individual members. Alright? So always remember, students, that by society as a concept, we are just not referring to the number of individuals living at a place. Rather, we are referring to the social relationships that exist among these individual members. There is another important thing which I want to clarify to you here, that when we are talking about social relationship, what do we basically mean by it? A relationship becomes social when it has two characteristics. One is the mutual awareness among the individual members about each other. This is the psychic condition of social relationships. So individual members must be aware about the presence of each other. Second is reciprocity, which basically implies that individuals share a reciprocal relationship with each other. All right. So in any given society, when we look at various social relationships, whether it is between a teacher or a student, or a husband and wife, or a father and son, the relationships are basically reciprocal. So mutual awareness and reciprocity together makes a relationship social. Now let us proceed further. Students, so how do we define society? Here I want to clarify to you that, just as I had explained you in the previous diagram, that different individuals share mutual awareness and reciprocal relationships in a given society. But what is the nature of these relationships? Okay, what is the nature of these relationships? For example, when you meet some stranger, what is the nature of that relationship? Is it spontaneous, random, or is there a pattern into it? What do you think? Yes, it is a spontaneous and random relationship, because you accidentally meet a stranger and you may not meet that stranger again in your life. So the relationship between you and that stranger is definitely social, because You both are mutually aware about each other's presence, and there is a reciprocal relationship between you. For example, that stranger might have asked you, "What is the time?" And you replied, "All right." So there is a reciprocal relationship. But this relationship is primarily spontaneous and random. In other words, it may be non-recurrent. It may be non-recurrent. But do such relationships form the basis of society? No. When we talk about society, we basically refer to a network of patterned relationship between the individual members who live in a society. And this patterned relationship is not just between the individual members, it is also there in various social, economic, and political institutions. Okay, we will come to the topic of institution a little later. However, for the sake of your clarity, I can show you a diagram. I hope you will understand it better here. Now you see that how two individuals who are in the process of interaction with each other, and when their interaction is repeated over and over again, it gets patterned. Now, why does a particular social interaction gets patterned? Can you answer this question? Students, human beings enter into social relationships with each other in order to achieve some goal. Social interaction becomes the means to achieve that goal. Now, such goal could either be economic, it could be political, it could be sexual, or it could be emotional, etc. So, in order to achieve certain goals, human beings enter into relationships with each other. If the process of social interaction, the manner in which they interact, helps these individual members to achieve their goals, then it is likely that they will repeat this behavior. So, this social interaction will become recurrent. Recurrent means this social behavior will be repeated again and again because it helps them to achieve the stated goals. That is how, students, particular form of social interaction between individual members become patterned, and over a period of time it gets institutionalized. Students, when I say that a particular form of social interaction or social relationship gets institutionalized, I mean that over a period of time, certain rules and regulations are formulated in order to regulate this kind of social interaction. For example, let's imagine that you want to purchase some fruits. Now, your goal is to buy fruits from the market. So, when your goal is to purchase fruits, you go to the market and you interact with the fruit seller. You offer him certain currency amount in exchange of the fruits. Now, if this mode of social interaction helps you to achieve your goal, and it also helps the other person to achieve his goal, that is, the fruit seller wants to earn money, okay, by selling fruits. So he got the money and you got the fruits. So it means this mode of interaction between you as a customer and between him as the seller has served the purpose of both. So this mode of social interaction is likely to be repeated over and over again, and it will become patterned over a period of time, and it will become institutionalized. So that is how we see that in the traditional society, barter system used to regulate the economic interaction between individual members, while in modern society we see the state through its various economic policies is regulating the economic exchange between different individuals in the society. Likewise, we can think of another example. For example, let's assume the relationship between a man and a woman. Now, a man and a woman may enter into a relationship for achieving various objectives or goals. For example, it could be sexual gratification, it could be emotional gratification, or it could be simply, or it could be reproduction. So by entering into relationship, this man and this woman, if they are able to achieve these goals, then it is likely that they will continue with this mode of social interaction. And over a period of time, it will become the common mode of social interaction in society. So that is how the social interaction between individuals, if it helps to achieve certain goals, then it is likely to be repeated. And when any mode of social interaction becomes pattern, then rules and regulations develop in order to regulate that kind of behavior or that kind of social interaction. So, with regard to the relationship between a man and a woman, we have various rules which are prescribed under different personal laws, okay, like rules for marriage, okay. So that is how the social interaction becomes pattern and it gets institutionalized over a period of time. So let us proceed further. Another very important aspect of society as a concept is whether it can be seen as a structure or a process. Now, students, when we look at society at a given point of time, then society can be seen as a structure. But when we look at society over a period of time, then society can be viewed as a process. Let me explain. Students, the concepts of status and role are very important to understand the concept of society as a structure. Now, what is status and what is role? By status, we mean the social position that an individual occupies in a society. Now, each status has certain rights and responsibilities attached to it. Okay? Status is nothing but a set of rights and responsibilities. So, for example, teacher. Teacher has certain rights and responsibilities which are culturally defined in a given society. So, when we look at these social statuses, the manner in which their rights and responsibilities are defined, we can look at society as a structure. Now, if you look at the ancient society, ancient Indian society, so there we could understand the structure of ancient Indian society through this diagram, because the ancient Indian society was largely a caste based society, and caste system implied hierarchy. So different castes were arranged in a hierarchical order in terms of their ritual notion of purity and pollution. So those castes which considered themselves to be purer were placed in the so those castes which were considered to be relatively purer were placed at the top of the hierarchy, while those which were considered to be polluted or less purer were placed at the bottom of the hierarchy. Because each caste, for example, when we look at, you know, Brahmins, okay, now Brahmins occupy the topmost position in the caste hierarchy because they were considered to be purest, while the untouchables or Dalits, okay, they occupied the lowest position in the caste hierarchy because they were considered to be the most polluted. And whether one is purest or one is polluted was largely defined in ascriptive terms. That is, everything was decided on the basis of birth. Okay? So, relatively, Brahmins enjoyed much more privileges, much more advantages in comparison to the lower placed castes. All right. So, in this, we can see in this structure that there was a differential ranking of caste on the basis of what rights or responsibilities they enjoy. So the structure of traditional Indian society could be largely understood in this manner, okay, in a triangular form, where a minority occupied the social, economic, and political privileges, while the majority, okay, the lower caste, were largely deprived. Now, let us come back to our example of teacher. Now, as we have understood society as a structure, let us now try to understand society as a process. So, status basically is the building block of the structure of society. Now, the rights and responsibilities that are associated with a particular status are relatively fixed over a certain point of time. But over a period of time, they change, right? So when you look at the ancient society, for example, there used to be the Gurukul system, okay, where there was the practice of Guru Dakshina, okay. Now the rights and responsibilities of the Guru in the ancient times was very different than that of a guru or a teacher in modern times. I hope you remember the incident of one incident that was mentioned in Mahabharata, where Guru Dronacharya demands the thumb of the Eklavya as Guru Dakshina, and Eklavya happily obliges. So just imagine that such were the rights of the Guru in the ancient times. All right, and such was the responsibility of the student in ancient times. But do the teachers of today, the gurus of today, enjoy similar rights or responsibilities? No. The rights and responsibilities have drastically changed. The relationship between the teacher and a student has now become more formal. It has become more contractual and specific, right? So today, no teacher can ask Guru Dakshina the way Guru Dronacharya asked in past. Okay? So the terms and conditions of the relationship between a teacher and a student are very clearly defined. So what we see here is that the status of the teacher, the way it was defined in the past and the way it is defined in the present, has changed over a period of time. So that is why, students, we say that society can be seen as both as a structure as well as a process. It is a structure when we see it at a point of time, and it is a process when we see it over a period of time. So that is how we can understand society as a concept. Students, I would like to clarify one more thing here, that in general, society is based on some degree of similarity between the individual members, that is, some degree of likeness. But it does not mean that differences do not exist in society. So, if you look at our contemporary Indian society, we see different kind of differences that exist, be it the difference of gender, be it the difference of caste, be it the difference of religion. So, on various dimensions, we differ from each other. But when we talk about Indian society, then The similarity or the likeness that we share with each other, that is the identity of being a citizen of India. This identity tends to encompass all other differences. In other words, the differences are subordinated to the likeness, because only then a society can continue as a single unit. All right. So, this is all about the concept of society. I hope now when you use the term society, you will be more careful about the various conceptual aspects related to this term. Thank you.